Republican frontrunner Mitt Romney took another step towards securing his party's presidential nomination today with a pretty strong win in the state of Illinois, around about 12% or thereabouts over his nearest rival, Rick Santorum. And it rather adds to the pressure as well on the other presidential hopefuls to now bow out of the race.
After years of too many apologies and not enough jobs, historic drops in income and historic highs in gas prices, a president who doesn't hesitate to use all the means necessary to force through Obamacare on the American public, but leads from behind in the world. It's time to say these words. This word, enough.
Tom Switzer is a research associate at the United States Studies Centre at the University of Sydney and editor of The Spectator Australia. Tom, welcome.
John.
As a step towards the Republican nomination in Illinois today, was it a big step or sort of a dolly step?
No, I think it's a big step because 54 delegates is a lot. I'd argue it's his most significant victory since Florida in late January.
Why so?
Well, because this was the state where he only faced one Conservative candidate. This whole race, as you well know, has been dogged by Romney versus anybody but Romney. Here was a chance for Rick Santorum to coalesce the Conservative vote around him, and he did so, and he still got smashed by double digits.
Now, Illinois, it's a big, diverse state. Parts of Illinois that border on Iowa are really sort of heartland, rural, Midwest. Other parts of it in the South, Mississippi. I mean, it is several states in one, in a way. What does this add to Romney's electability argument that he can win this sort of a diverse state?
Well, I think Santorum probably did marginally better in some of the rural parts of Illinois and in the West and the South. But the key here for Romney, I think, is that he did very well in Chicago and the suburbs around Chicago and other suburban parts of Illinois. Now, I say this is the key because in the general election against Obama, these suburban people, these are folks who are fairly independent, they're moderate on social issues, but they're very disheartened by the economy. They're more likely to vote for Romney than any other candidate in the Republican field. And by doing so well in this constituency, I think that bolsters his chances against Obama later this year.
But surely the urbanites in, whether it's Chicago or Bloomington or Springfield, they're going to vote for Barack Obama.
Well, Illinois is his home state, so I think you're absolutely right. But generally speaking, in these other suburban parts of the major states, like outside of Cleveland, Ohio, Cincinnati, these are folks that have tended to become more Democrat-leaning in the last 15 years. They've been repulsed by the Republican Party's move to the right on social issues. But I think Romney, I mean, the very issue, it's quite intriguing, the very issue that has hurt Romney throughout this Republican primary process, the fact that he's been consensus and compromises too much, too conciliatory, I think they're the very qualities that will help him in a general election against Barack Obama.
Except that he has to get the nomination first.
Well, that's true.
And while he's now around about halfway there, he's got about 540 delegates of the 1,144 that he needs. Still, Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich, who only got 8% today in Illinois, came after Ron Paul on 9%, in fourth place. They're saying we're going to stay in this because we don't think Romney is good enough. I mean, how much damage does that do? That everybody else in the field is not just saying, I would be better, but they're saying, this guy can't beat Obama.
Well, I think there's some truth to what you're saying, but bear in mind, John, there are two factors that really do help Romney in the next month or so. The first is geographic. After Louisiana on Saturday, the race...
Rick Santorum's going to win probably by double digits.
Quite conceivably, and of course Romney has never really done well in the South, although if he's a Republican nominee, he'll win the South anyway against a Democratic candidate. But geography will help him in the next month because most of the primaries will now be in the Northeast. Maryland, New York State, Connecticut, Delaware, this is all Romney territory, so he'll win them pretty convincingly. The other factor to bear in mind is the structure of the race. The GOP rules suggest that after April 1, whoever wins the vote in a primary wins all of the delegates. It's winner takes all. Now, that will only expand the lead, one would suspect, for Mitt Romney over the rest of the field.
There is still this possibility that there will be no winner by the end of June and that they could go to the convention in August without a nominee, and there could be a lot of horse trading indeed. Michael Steele, the former chairman of the Republican National Committee, kind of admitted for the first time this week that as a parting shot when he set up this new system, yeah, I was kind of hoping that it would end up being a brokered convention. That'd be exciting. At least a sort of an Obama-Hillary-style drawn-out contest, and he's now got what he wished for there.
Yeah, unintended consequences. I don't know. I think some Republicans
or intended
are worried.
In Michael Steele's
well, in his case, intended, but I think most Republicans are worried that it will drag on. But I do think that all things considered, Romney will probably have this wrapped up before then, I suspect by late May. But nevertheless, we'll be having this conversation for the next 6 weeks, so I'll still be on your program, no doubt.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So, as a frequent traveller to the United States and a close observer of this process, I mean, there is this open question of, is Romney not just sealing the deal now, but also getting himself in a great position to be the moderate candidate that Tom talks about against Obama, or is that kind of wishful thinking? He really is as weak as some people say he is.
No, I mean, clearly, if you're looking at the way the numbers are and what the polling is saying, most people are assuming that Romney is going to be the candidate. So while the punch-outs are going on, I mean, general acceptance is that that's the way it will end up, whether we like it or not. And even the other Conservatives are actually, recognising that. What's interesting to me, though, is more and more and more I'm actually seeing commentary now coming from people saying Obama will win again. Mm-hmm. So they're starting to write off the Republican campaign. And, I mean, I suppose it's a general view that has always been the case. But if you think about it, we as Australia have been hearing, Obama's government's in tatters, etc., etc. So as we're really starting to get sort of, where the rubber's really hitting the road, I think there are some home truths starting to become accepted. I don't know, Tom, are you sort of picking up the same thing?
Well, I think the circumstances can change a lot in a long election year. And I think the real worrying development for Obama, although I do agree he would be the favourite at this stage to win, is the economy. It's still lacklustre growth, but also the prospect of higher gas prices, or what we call in Australia petrol prices. Americans call them gas prices. They're now $3.85 a gallon. If they go to $5 during the summer, all bets are off. I think it could be in all sorts of trouble in those circumstances.
Employment does seem to be trending the right way for them at the right time, doesn't it?
Yes, although growth is still very sluggish. And look, the other point to bear in mind is if there is a strike in the Persian Gulf against Iran, it's more likely to be the Israelis and the Americans, but if there is, again, the kind of upward momentum that would have on gas prices. And never underestimate Joe Sixpack, who has to fill up his tank during a hot summer day, and he or she has to pay higher gas prices. They'll take it out on the president than they will on the challenger.
John Stanley, is it all over, do you think, or could the game change?
Well, it does look like it'll be Romney, and has looked like for a long time. But I'm interested, Tom, the people who are the anyone but Romneys in the Republican Party, are they still going to turn out, or is there an element of them that'll say, OK, well, we don't like him, so we just won't vote?
On a general election day?
Yeah, general election day.
Look, that's a great question, John, and I think a lot of Republican strategists are very nervous about the Republican base not showing up on election day. My sense is that if the Republicans can make this a referendum on Obama's big government, big interventionist policies, that's enough to get the base going. Just like it did in 2010 when the Republicans scored 60-plus House seats in the midterm elections.
We've got Peter Black still with us in Brisbane. Peter, what's your take on this?
Well, I mean, I pretty much agree with what the panel's been talking about there. I mean, it does seem as though it is the inevitable march from Mitt Romney to the nomination. I think what I am interested in at the moment is at what point, if at all, Rick Santorum, or more likely Newt Gingrich, may choose to pull the plug. I mean, both seem very determined to continue with their campaign. Rick Santorum's probably got a better foundation on which to do that than Newt Gingrich. At the moment, he really only seems to be continuing because he can't stand Mitt Romney, and that's why he's not prepared to get out of the race. The irony there, of course, is that perhaps he could do the greatest damage to Mitt Romney if he was able to get out of the race, and to give Rick Santorum sort of the clear run as the anti-Romney candidate.
But of course, the problem you've got right now is funding, and whether these campaigns will still be funded. I mean, there's got to come a point where people say, whether it's Newt, Santorum or whoever, we're not going to keep bankrolling this. And I think you're actually already seeing that with the Santorum campaign, where they're being massively outspent by Romney.
Yeah, and that's the real lesson of this Republican race, as Sue points out, that organisation and money really do matter.
Yeah. I mean, Tom, there has been a lot written about the influence of so-called super PACs in this, these political action committees that can spend a lot of money advertising on behalf of the candidates. They can't coordinate specifically with the campaigns, so the campaigns still have to make money, and on that score, as Sue says, Santorum, even though he's being outspent, he's also burning through a lot of money. He made $9 million last month, he only has $2 million left in the bank. That's not a lot, only halfway through the process, when maybe his support has peaked.
And he's also made some poor strategic decisions. As you know, during the week he spent 2 days in Puerto Rico. Now, that was 2 days. He never had a chance of winning Puerto Rico, which ultimately didn't cost a great deal of delegates. But by spending 2 days in Puerto Rico, that robbed him of valuable time in Illinois.
There has been a lot of, at best, sloppy paperwork throughout this process. There was the chance that Rick Santorum could have got kicked off the ballot in 11 counties in Illinois because he apparently didn't have the 600 signatures that he needed. Now, the Romney campaign were quite sweet about this. They said, we're actually not going to ask anyone to scrutinise that because there were some problems with their paperwork as well.
Yeah.
Similar thing happened in Virginia, where only Romney and Ron Paul ended up being on the ballot because nobody else got the signatures they needed.
Right.
So there's a sloppiness here, at least, that suggests that maybe they didn't think this was still going to be happening.
No, well, that's exactly right. I mean, Australians roll their eyes, but I've got no doubt a lot of Americans, including a lot of conservative Republicans, are rolling their eyes too about this complicated process.
But can I just say, I mean, I think all of us, even in domestic campaigns, have seen some howlers every now and again when you're going in to actually have your candidate nominated and find out that A, they don't turn up, B, they're in the wrong place, C, they're Puerto Rican, not Australian, etc. I mean, there's not a campaign that hasn't had a few black eyes.
Yes, indeed. Peter, to you just briefly, with the way that this is all panning out now, do you think that the Republicans have confidence in who their nominee is going to be and their ability to beat Barack Obama, or is there really too much of this road to go?
I mean, I think it is a little too early to say, but I don't think the Republicans do have a lot of confidence in their inevitable nominee, Mitt Romney, at the moment, or else I think this process would have been over much quicker than it has. I think where the Republicans do stand a good chance towards the end of the year as they move towards the election is, as Tom was talking about, the economy, but also money. The creation of super PACs and the role of super PACs this time around will actually allow the Republicans to compete with Barack Obama's fundraising machine, so there won't be that same financial or economic disadvantage that there was 4 years ago.
Now,